Round 8. Battle Cries. Now you may be thinking, why the hell would I even make this into a round? But we'll have the 2003 Mikey explain it for us.
Part of having a winning attitude is having a cool battle cry. A heroic superhero kind of battle cry, like in the comic books.
Aww, isn't he cute? But if that doesn't convince you, then let me give you my own reasons. For the Turtles, the catchphrases, or battle cries in this case, are what they shout before or during battle, and those get us excited for the action scenes. To me, the battle cries help add charm and excitement to the Ninja Turtles no matter what incarnation it may be. I'm aware that the battle cries are just catchphrases and they're just there to be marketable, but hey, if you're a Turtles fan, then at least in your life you must have said, "Cowabunga!" or "Turtle Power!" or at least have them written down on your clothing or in your phone signatures. Either way, people quote these, and you're gonna see them outside the show one way or another. So, which show had the better catchphrases? Who had the better battle cries? Well, let's look at the classic series. Obviously, we had Michelangelo's "Cowabunga!", which became the most well-known in the entire series, and ever since he said it, it's been said one way or another in other Turtles media. The video games, the movies, and it even managed to find its way to the 2003 series.
Cowabunga!
The second most well-known battle cry would be "Turtle Power!", which, like Cowabunga, also found its way to other Turtles media. Now that's a battle cry. As cheesy or corny as it sounds, you know when the Turtles said it, you start to cheer for them. They also had other corny yet lovable battle cries, such as "Go Green Machine," "Let's Turtleize them," and of course,
"Turtles fight with honor!" Call me a sentimental fool, but I'm just a sucker for that battle cry.
I'm sure there are more from the old series that I forgot to mention, but those are the main ones I remember. Donatello's repetitive "Aw, that was my favorite bow" gag does not count. And what about the 2003 series? Well, they didn't have an official battle cry or catchphrase from what I see. They had a bunch, as if they couldn't really settle on which one to choose. They had "I love being a turtle" and various shell puns like "What the shell?" or "I'm mad as shell." But later on they did settle on one battle cry. "It's ninja time!" Are you kidding me? That's so lame it sounds like something they'd say on Naruto.
It's ninja time! Believe it!
Quiet, you. So yeah, as you can see, I don't like the new battle cries much since they're just plain corny. Now don't get me wrong, the battle cries from the older series were corny too, but at least those were fun and could be said with pride. The new ones, on the other hand, don't quite do it for me. Turtles ain't nothing without turtle power, so when it comes to some of the coolest battle cries and catchphrases ever, I say the classic series scores again.
Heroes in a half shell, turtle power!
Round 9. Voice acting. Now for the people who use their voice talents to help bring our favorite characters to life and give them personality. The classic series had a ton of memorable voice actors who've appeared in many more cartoons and media. Michelangelo was voiced by Townsend Coleman, who was also the voice of the Tick. Donatello and Bebop were played by Barry Gordon, who's known as the voice of Razor from SWAT Cats and the Rabbit from the Nesquik commercials. Leonardo and Rocksteady were voiced by Ken Clark, who's known for doing the voice of Liquid Snake from the Metal Gear Solid video game series and the voice of Kratos for Tales of Symphonia. Raphael's voice was done by Rob Paulsen, who's voiced a lot of cartoon characters over the years. And let's not forget the Shredder, who was played by James Avery, who's well known for playing Uncle Phil on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and he's my personal favorite of all of them. His voice of Shredder was absolutely perfect. He could sound either very evil or very silly, depending on the episode. And hey, it's Uncle Phil. You can't go wrong with Uncle Phil. Or can you? Jim Cummings was also in this show as Leatherhead and at one point the voice of Shredder. Like Rob Paulsen, he also voiced many cartoon characters, sometimes even starring alongside Rob Paulsen in shows like Goof Troop and Bump in the Night. The classic series also had other voice actors who, while they didn't play major characters, still played characters nonetheless. Peter Cullen, the voice of Optimus Prime, voiced a karate dojo teacher. Let me repeat that. The voice of Optimus Prime was in the classic Ninja Turtles series. That alone is enough to have the classic series win. But to be fair, let's compare the voices from the 2003 series before we jump to a verdict here. The newer series had Leonardo played by Michael Sinterniklaas, who plays Dean Venture on The Venture Brothers, Zelos on Slayers, Loopy, and Neutra Giruga in the dub of Bleach. It's also interesting to note that Cam Clark plays a character in Bleach as well, by the name of Yoshitochika Iamura. Think about that for a minute. Both Leonardos are in the Bleach dub. That's kinda cool. Donatello is played by Sam Riegel, who is the voice of Viral from Gurren Lagann, Minaru Shiraishi from Lucky Star, and Steve in Resident Evil, The Darkside Chronicles. Michelangelo is done by Wayne Grayson, who's voiced a handful of characters for the various Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows, and a few characters from Kinnikuman Nisei, or Ultimate Muscle as it's called here in the States. Finally, Raphael was voiced by Frank Frankson, also known as John Campbell, who's known as the voice for Terry Kenyon in Ultimate Muscle and Tristan of the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. Now granted, the 4Kids voice cast is pretty good. I especially adore Veronica Taylor as April O'Neil. But how are they when it actually comes to acting? Well, in the classic tune, the voice acting wasn't anything amazing, but if you ask me, it got the job done. Michelangelo and Donatello's voices were my favorite of the Turtles, but I think Krang had the best voice acting. I still wonder how the voice actor, Pat Fraley, made some of those noises Krang did while he was talking. But sometimes the voice acting did sound awkward, but usually when a voice actor was replaced with someone else for the episode. The replacements either didn't match or just did a crappy job of playing the character altogether. And despite the fact that I like Jim Cummings, there were times when he sounded pretty bad as the Shredder. Raphael also had two other voice actors aside from Rob Paulsen. The first was Hal Rail, who voiced Raphael for the European Vacation season, who sounded pretty crappy. The second was Michael Goh, who voiced Raph for the final season of Ninja Turtles, and he was actually pretty decent. As for the 2003 series, well, for the most part, the voice acting was pretty good. Raph and April were my favorites, but my real favorite voice was Bishop. He just sounds so cool. I also like the voices of characters played by Greg Carey, such as Hun, Traximus, and Leatherhead, since he has that cool, deep, big guy voice. However, once in a while, the voice acting was so bad it was funny.
It is time to pay for your crimes, Shredder.
For some reason, that always makes me laugh. Other times, the voices can just get annoying, like Michelangelo's. I do admit, his girly screams were kind of funny. But the most annoying is Sean Schemmel. To be fair, I have nothing against him. I actually grew up watching Dragon Ball Z as a kid, with him as the voice of Goku, and I still think he did a pretty good job. He voiced a few characters in the Ninja Turtles 2003 series, and while he did do a decent job with some of them, others sounded rather awkward or annoying.
Yeah? Well, I don't need those bunch of losers anyway. You're all going down, cause I'm Jinko! Say hello to my little friend!
I have never heard someone make a black character sound so white before. So who were the better voice actors? Well, I gotta say I prefer the ones from the classic series. Now don't get me wrong, I still like the ones from the 2003 series, but I prefer a lot of the voices from the classic cartoons such as Michelangelo's, Shredder's, Splinter's, and others compared to the 4Kids voices. A good example is Splinter. In the 2003 series, he sounds like a regular guy trying to sound like an old wise man. But in the classic series, he really does sound like an old wise man. I just think that the voice actors in the classic series delivered a better performance and sounded much more unique compared to the newer voice actors. Plus, let's not forget, the voice of Optimus freaking Prime was in this show! Another point for the classic series.
Heroes in a half shell, turtle power.
Round 10. Music. Now for the background music. I know I already gave a point to the classic series earlier for its theme song, but this round is for the background music. You know, what plays in the background of the show when the turtles are fighting or doing pretty much anything else, as well as the general soundtrack. The classic series has some rather memorable tracks, such as the Technodrome theme, and an instrumental version of the theme song that would play during action scenes, which always got us excited. Pretty good stuff, but not exactly something you'd want to put on your iPod and jam to. As for the second series, the music is alright. At times it tries to sound Japanese to give the show a more ninja-esque feel, which is very appropriate, especially when Shredder and the Foot Ninjas appear, or when Splinter is on screen. Once in a while, the show would try to have songs with lyrics of its own, such as the one in the first part of the 3-part episode, City at War. Or the song in the episode, April's Artifact.
In this world you got to be well, it's a jungle out there.
These songs were rather cheesy. They felt rather unnecessary, but that's just me. The Japanese version, on the other hand, had a pretty good soundtrack. The theme songs and the ending themes changed every season, much like how they do in most anime. And these were actually much better than the American theme songs of the 2003 series. I especially like Everybody, Everybody, Everybody. So which show had the better soundtrack? Well, I already gave the classic series a point for their theme song, since Lord knows I freaking love that theme song. But what about the other tracks? Well, in all honesty, I'd have to say I prefer the music from the classic series. No offense, I do like the music for the 2003 series, but most of the time it's not very memorable or unique, and sometimes it could feel rather stock. The music for the classic series was much more memorable, and in the process, helped the Ninja Turtles themselves stick out more from other cartoons, and made the series unique as well. The music for the 2003 series unfortunately lacks that effect. For example, if you were to use the background music for the 2003 series in another show, I doubt you'd be able to point out that it's from Ninja Turtles right away. But put the background music for the classic series in the background of another show, and you'll be able to tell what it is the second it starts. But if you ask me, there is one soundtrack that tops both shows that I can honestly find myself jamming to. The original Turtles in Time soundtrack. Of course, giving the point to the game would be rather unfair, so once again, when it comes to music, I'll have to say the classic series scores another point. Round 11. Style and animation. Like any other cartoon, both had their own style of animation with their own unique charm that coincided with the time that they were made. The classic series was done with hand-drawn and hand-painted cells. I already stated the first 5 episodes were done by Toei, and for the most part the animation was rather well done, especially for the action scenes. In my opinion, these episodes had the best fight scenes in the entire series. However, the rest of the series wasn't done by Toei, and I felt the action scenes really suffered. In fact, I feel that as the show went on, there was a period when the animation kept getting worse and worse before getting better. Characters and fight scenes looked stiff and awkward, lip flaps didn't fit the dialogue, and sometimes there was no movement at all. And of course, there were the infamous scenes where the turtles are seen or heard with the wrong mask color, voice, or weapons. Funny thing is, I personally feel these errors gave the classic series more of a unique charm, and at times were even rather amusing, adding to the humor. But I also feel that because of these animation errors, it also made the series suffer as well. It made the episodes seem rushed and even rather sloppy. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't look at the finished product of some of these episodes, since some of the animation can look rather questionable at times. But eventually mistakes like these became less common during the second half of Season 7 and beyond. That's when we got the Red Sky episodes for the final 3 seasons. The animation was much better, but still the action scenes were nowhere as good as the first season. Still, the errors were much more rare and a lot less obvious, so it looked like a much better job overall. The animation, new story, and the subject matter for the final 3 seasons actually reminded me a lot of X-Men. You know, mutants who are trying to do good, but wonder what's the point of it all if humans do nothing but judge and hate them. Funny connection, since one of the inspirations for the original TMNT comic book was the New Mutants from Marvel, which was a spin-off of X-Men. Now for the 2003 series. Earlier in the countdown I praised it for having spectacular animation, but a lot of people said that the new animation seems too clunky or stiff. I could see why they'd think that for the later seasons, as the animations and style changed up to be less detailed, slower, and overall easier to draw for animators. I could even understand why they'd think that for the first few episodes of Season 1, but the show was still getting started. Action scenes weren't anything too special yet, and the fights didn't really start to get good until later. Despite that, however, for the first 5 seasons the animation was crisp, clean, smooth, detailed, and fluent. While regular scenes with the characters just talking weren't much to look at, the action scenes were impressive with a lot going on, and while not really all that creative, they were still a spectacle to look at. The characters had quick movement, moving swiftly and flexibly like actual ninja. The animation was also stylish, and rather anime-like and comic book-like at the same time. The colors were often dark with lots of shading, so that way it can look like the original comic book, which was also dark in terms of artwork and style. The fight scenes also made use of a lot of flashy backgrounds and other anime-like effects to make them more appealing to look at. It's funny how a lot of people don't like the animation for the 2003 series, saying that it looks too much like anime. Meanwhile, the first 5 episodes and opening theme for the classic series were technically anime, and it even used similar effects as well. It was rare that they ever made animation errors, or at least errors that were noticeable. The only one I ever stumbled across was during the second season. At this point in the episode, the Turtles' weapons had been taken from them, but you can clearly see that they still have their weapons on their backs. Shortly afterwards, we see their allies handing the Turtles the weapons. As I said, I'm sure there were numerous other errors, but I doubt they were nearly as noticeable as ones in the classic series, or as common for that matter. After the first 5 seasons, though, Fast Forward came along, followed by Back to the Sewers. The characters were redesigned for both seasons, and new people took over the direction of the show. Personally, I was not impressed with the style change or new animation. While it was still crisp, clean, and smooth, the action scenes didn't feel as exciting or creative, being too brief or nothing special. The style went from dark and heavily shaded to bright and colorful to coincide with the change of direction the show was going for. At times, it felt more like watching the Jetsons than watching Ninja Turtles. When Back to the Sewers came along, the character designs were changed heavily to become even less detailed, and despite being back in New York, the show was bright and colorful as Fast Forward. Not necessarily a bad thing, but it did kind of take away from the look and feel the show had established for the first 5 seasons. But if I had to choose something, I'd have to say I like the animation for the 2003 series, but only for the first 5 seasons. True, I prefer hand-drawn cells to digital pictures, and I'm always praising Season 1 of the classic series for its animation, but that was just for 5 episodes. Afterwards, as I said, they went downhill. Meanwhile, the 2003 series gave us 5 full seasons of great animation before that went downhill. I feel that since the Ninja Turtles is supposed to be an action cartoon, then the show with the better animated action should win this round. Point goes to the 2003 series.